A castle is a type of fortified structure built during the Middle Ages predominantly by the nobility or royalty and by military orders. Scholars debate the scope of the word castle, but usually consider it to be the private fortified residence of a lord or noble. The allure of these grandiose estates doesn't stem just strictly from their childhood storybook connections, but rather from the true tales that have occurred within their halls and manicured gardens. Over the approximately 900 years that castles were built, they took on a great many forms with many different features, although some, such as curtain walls, arrow slits, and portcullises, were commonplace. Furthermore, the historic furnishings, silken textiles, and brilliant frescoes showcase notable trends that have helped shape the design industry as we know it today. From a red sandstone and marble fortress in India to a pretty in pink palace in Germany, the rooms and halls of these spellbinding castles evoke scenes of knights and ladies strolling through their impeccably decorated walls. European-style castles originated in the 9th and 10th centuries, after the fall of the Carolingian Empire resulted in its territory being divided among individual lords and princes. Inside, the Baroque-style rooms are dripping in grandeur with sparkling chandeliers, one-of-a-kind frescoes, and gilded furnishings. A number of the original furnishings, such as carved console tables and delicate writing desks, remain within the central halls. European-style castles originated in the 9th and 10th centuries, after the fall of the Carolingian Empire resulted in its territory being divided among individual lords and princes. These nobles built castles to control the area immediately surrounding them, and the castles were both offensive and defensive structures. They provided a base from which raids could be launched as well as offered protection from enemies. Although their military origins are often emphasized in castle studies, the structures also served as centers of administration and symbols of power. The origins of the Rococo masterpiece trace back to 1710 when Peter the Great gifted the estate in Tsarskoye to his beloved wife, Catherine. 7 years later, the Empress of Russia commissioned German architect Johann Friedrich Braunstein to the 16-chamber manor house. Many northern European castles were originally built from earth and timber, but had their refences replaced later by stone. Early castles often exploited natural defenses, lacking features such as towers and arrow slits and relying on a central keep. The Great Hall was a large, decorated room where a lord received his guests. The hall represented the prestige, authority, and richness of the lord. However, the Pleasure Palace as we know it today didn't come about until 1743 when Peter's daughter, Elizabeth, inherited it. Events such as feasts, banquets, social or ceremonial gatherings, meetings of the military council, and judicial trials were held in the Great Hall. Sometimes the Great Hall existed as a separate building. In that case, it was called a hall house. During this time, 4 large and 2 small sofas, 4 armchairs, and 14 side chairs made up the layout of the room. A symbol of opulence and nobility, the breathtaking former royal residence represents the rise in French fashion and power. A symbol of opulence and nobility, the breathtaking former royal residence represents the rise in French fashion and power. Probably the most recognized room of the palace, the Hall of Mirrors, pays tribute to the artistic, economic, and political success of the country. The purpose of marriage between the medieval elites was to secure land. Frederiksborg Castle was built in the early 17th century for King Christian IV, who demolished the original residence acquired by his father Frederick II to establish a magnificent fortress. However, in 1859, a major fire destroyed much of the castle, and a national collection and lottery were held to rebuild the structure. Girls were married in their teens, but boys did not marry until they came of age. There is a popular conception that women played a peripheral role in the medieval castle household, and that it was dominated by the lord himself. The ear-shaped complex includes a labyrinth of marble buildings, lush courtyards, and a network of underground rooms. The location of castles in relation to high-status features, such as fish ponds, was a statement of power and control of resources. The water features of Kenilworth Castle in England, comprising a moat and several satellite ponds, forced anyone approaching a water castle entrance to take a very indirect route, walking around the defences before the final approach towards the gateway.